Let's take you to the Eastern Cape now, where the 4-year-old pupil who died after falling into a pit latrine at school is being laid to rest today. Langalam Viki's death brought the issue of pit toilets in the public schools back into the spotlight. For more on this, we've got Ronald Masinda, who joins us from Cacadu in the Eastern Cape. Ronald, you have been attending the funeral proceedings today. The last time you and I spoke, the child was going to be laid to rest. What is the community saying about this tragedy, and have there been any insights from local government officials around changing the circumstances and the infrastructure in public schools there?
Yes, of course, fueling more concerns around the issue of pit toilets. The community is up in arms. They want justice for Langalam Viki. Of course, having spoken to activist Petros Majola earlier on, is also of the view that there could be foul play, and this is a sentiment that is also being shared by the family. I am hoping to speak to the mother of Langalam Viki shortly, but a very important conversation that I'm about to have with the MEC for Education here in the Eastern Cape, Mr. Fundile Gati. Mr. Gati, thank you so much for your time. Amnesty International South Africa is firmly of the view that pit toilets by 2023 should have been eradicated. Why in 2023 are we still talking about the issue of pit toilets at schools?
I don't think that's the issue now, because in terms of the infrastructure development plan of the sector, yes, we have committed ourselves in terms of eradication of the mud structure, in terms of the pit latrine toilets. But if you look in terms of the fiscus of the country, it doesn't look like that. For example, we were given 453 schools that must be dealt with within the current fiscus, and we dealt with them. But I can assure you, out of the 1,500 schools that were identified in 2019 as need for the eradication of pit latrines, we have dealt with plus minus 900 now. But unfortunately, this incident happened within the journey of dealing with that. But for me, it's not just about whether this kid has been found in the toilet or fallen in a toilet. There is more on it to be thoroughly investigated, precisely because of the preliminary investigations that are currently underway, which indicates that this kid has been found with head injuries, and two, this kid has been found fully dressed whilst found in a toilet, which then brings my mind into the issue of 2019, the Luna case of Mbizana, where when this matter was interrogated in courts of law, there emerges that now we have, within the case itself, there is an element of criminal elements within it. So that's why we were then of the view that the current investigations of the Department of Basic Education and also of the Department of Safety and Liaison must be quickly concluded and be aligned with the post-mortem report that has been issued this week.
Let me come in there, Mr. Gati. The reality is we still have pit toilets in the province, and according to the SA Human Rights Commission, there are about 2,000 schools.
No, we don't have 2,000 schools in the province. The research was 1.5 2019. And from 2019, we have covered 900 schools. So we are left with something plus minus 600 now, which of course we have not yet completed. But in terms of the SAFE program, because you'll remember, this is a project that is currently under the wing of the minister herself, and in the country, that focuses in Eastern Cape, Mpumalanga, Limpopo and KZN. Those are the rural provinces that were confronted with this kind of a problem in terms of that research problem.
Is it a financial issue, trying to deal with the problems faced by schools that have pit toilets?
Yes, it's a complex issue. One is question of the financial capacity of the state in dealing generally with the infrastructure backlogs that you have. Hence, I was worried during the rain yesterday night whether this funeral can be able to proceed quite very well. understanding that this is a disaster-prone area. If you look into the road infrastructure that you have coming into these villages, but also in terms of the backlogs generally, that infrastructure we have in the country and also in the province.
But here's my follow-up question to you. Finance Minister Ino Kotongwana's Gazette recently revealed that the Eastern Cape Education Department didn't use over 100 million rand that is for infrastructure development. Why?
I have been trying to avoid this argument in case we can put government into disrepute. Look, the Department of Eastern Cape was given 1.6 billion, and the Department of Education has utilized that money to the fullest. Let's start there. In November, then there was a rollover of 400 million, which was then given to the Department of Education, which was approved. The very same National Treasurer approved the utilization of that rollover on the 18th of January, meaning that from November to the 18th of January, that money was not in the Department of Education.
Mr. Kati, whether Langalam Viki was killed or accidentally fell into the pit toilets, did you see those pit toilets at that school and just how big the toilets are? I mean, surely that is also a health risk for any person.
Yeah, that's why we have conducted investigations, because earlier on we thought that this school is part of those schools that do not have the VIP standard building of toilets through the safe requirements. But I was a bit disappointed when I was there last week, and I happened to be given a brief by the department and the police where the kid was found, and also the family, the grandpa, told me how they got that kid. So I then find myself in a bit of a very awkward space, because I thought it's one of those mud pit latrine toilets that we have in the province. And but I then said no, if that is the case, it means there is more to be done in terms of infrastructure, not generally in the province, but generally in the country. Because remember, for us to be able to deal decisively with that issue, you need what you call the solid infrastructure that is done by human settlements and local government, that interlinked institutions of government, so that you don't have a sewage system that is within the school, so that you can be able to deal with that matter once and for all. But in my view, I don't see us able to do that in the current situation that government is undergoing through, because I've never seen such a solid infrastructure in rural areas generally in the country.
But they were built in 2016.
Yes.
Will the department take any responsibility?
No, the department has already taken a responsibility, hence why here. But we said we wanted to bury the kid. Let's be human. Let's not be officials of government. Because once you become state machinery, you run a risk of being insensitive and try to be defensive. This is a kid of people. She must be buried with dignity. Whether she has been fallen in a toilet or found in a toilet, in my view, that is immaterial. What we needed to do now is to bury her, come back thoroughly, and follow the patterns and trends that informs this incident, so that we deal with it once and for all, and responsibilities attached to individuals that can be found guilty on this particular matter.
My last question, and just on a separate matter, we are receiving reports that two pupils from a school in Kentane have died. Do you know the circumstances behind these deaths?
Again, it goes back to what I've said to you, that the country must accept that it has got a crisis of infrastructure backlog, not for schools, but generally for government. those kids were going into one of the high schools in Kentani. They arrived in school, but because of the heavy rains that were happening on Monday, then the teachers felt very strongly that they must be released back. And I have always been harboring a view that you better be absent in schools during these trying times of climate change than to lose lives. But unfortunately, those kids passed through that river. And unfortunately, out of the 6 that were thrown there, 2 passed away, a boy and a girl, one doing grade 8 and the other one doing grade 11. So we are again calling the people to observe the climate change, but also government as government in general, look very closely into this crisis of the absence of infrastructure in general, because that is an area where you always find storms in the coastal belt of the Eastern Cape. And unfortunately, there are no roads, no bridges there.
Mr. Cacadu, thank you very much indeed for your time, sir. Well, that was the MEC for Education here in the Eastern Cape, Mr. Fundile Cacadu. It's back to you in studio.